All right, now it's time to move on to handling put requests on a specific resource. Say, for example, if the client wanted to submit an entire new version of the article on Jack Bauer, then they would do that via making a put request to this particular route. So if we did that in a standalone way, then we would write app.put, and then we would specify the route and also the callback function to handle that put request. But in our case, we're simply going to chain this put method onto our app.route. So over here, just below the .get, we're going to remove that semicolon to say that, hey, wait a minute, we're not done chaining methods yet. We're going to chain another one. And this is, of course, the put method. So it's going to the same route, so we don't have to specify that all over again. And in this case, we're going to add in our callback method, our rec and res. And then inside here, we're going to work with our MongoDB to replace a particular document inside our articles collection with whatever is sent over by the client. So in order to do this, we're essentially doing update from CRUD, and we're going to use the update method that's available to us through Mongoose. Now, the model name in this case will be article, and then we're going to call the update method, specify the conditions. So which article do we want to update? And then the actual updates that need to be made. And finally, we're going to set a property called overwrite to be true. And this tells MongoDB that we want to overwrite the entire document with what is specified in the update. Now, if we leave this part out or leave it as false, then it will only update a particular field. And we're going to see this very, very shortly. So let's put this into action and show you what I mean. So inside our put method, we're going to tap into the article model and we're going to call update. Now, inside update, there's three things that we have to specify. The first being the conditions upon which we want to perform this update method. So which article specifically do we actually want to update? Well, in this case, it's pretty much the same as what we have over here. We're going to search through our articles collection for one that has a title that matches the one that is requested by the client inside the URL parameter. So we're pretty much going to write the same here for our condition. So title matches the request.params.article title parameter. Now that's the first one out of the way. That's the condition. The next one that we have to put into this update method is the actual update that we want to make. So in this sense, it's kind of like that post request that we made previously, where the client will submit some new content through the body of the request, and that can contain the title and the content. And we'll use this information inside the request to update our article that we found through this search. So over here, I'm going to open up another set of curly braces, and we're going to add in the title as the request.body. So this is body parser parsing our request and looking for that thing that's sent over through an HTML form, for example. And we'll give it some names. So it's going to be request.body.title, and also we're going to update the content using request.body.content. So now that means when we make our request through Postman, not only do we have to change this to put, we also have to change what's inside the body here. So we're specifying two keys, the title and the content, and both of those have to match exactly what we wrote here, title and content, because those are the variables that will be passed out of the request. Now we're going to give it some other titles. So let's say that we decide to change the Jack Bauer article to Chuck Norris, and there's actually also a Chuck Norris Facts Top 100. I don't know who makes all these websites. So I'm just going to copy this one. The first rule of Chuck Norris is you do not talk about Chuck Norris. Healthy bit of reference to Fight Club in there. So let's say that I have decided to change my article for Jack Bauer to have a different title and a different content. So I make my put request to the route that is articles/Jack Bauer. And when I hit send, my request will be handled by this part of the code in my server. And it will look to see what is that parameter that is over here. So in my case, it's Jack Bauer. And then it's going to search all of my articles for something that has a title of Jack Bauer. And then it's going to replace the title with the new title and the content with the new content that we've specified in the body of the request. Finally, all that we have to do is add the finishing touch to this update method, which is to include that overwrite is true argument. Now, the reason why we need to add this is because by default, if we were to update our document using MongoDB, then this is already enabled. It will overwrite things if you don't include all of the fields in your update. But by using Mongoose, it deems it necessary to prevent this overwriting. So by default, Mongoose will prevent properties being overwritten and deleted. So let's go into here and add that overwrite and :true. So now we're finally ready to add in our callback and check to see if there were any errors. And if there were no errors, then we'll simply res.send successfully updated article, and we can close off our method and as well as cap off our chained method, the route.get and .put. So now if we save our app.js and go into our Robo3T, you can see that at the moment my last document in my articles collection has a title of Jack Bauer and a content of Jack Bauer once stepped into quicksand, and the quicksand could not escape. So now if I go ahead and submit my put request to articles/Jack Bauer, it should search through my articles for a document that has a title of Jack Bauer, and it will replace the title and the content of that document. So let's go ahead and hit send, and we get successfully updated article. And now if we go into Robo3T and we view our documents, you can see that our last document no longer has a title of Jack Bauer, and the content has also been changed. Now here comes the interesting part of the put request. If we only changed one thing, let's say I delete this title, so I no longer send a new title along with my put request, and instead I only send a new value for the content property. Let's go and restore this so that our server can actually find a document with the title of Jack Bauer. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all documents. And if we now view documents, there's nothing left in here. But if I go back into my GitHub project and repopulate the database, then I now should have restored all of my changes that I made before. So now we should be able to find a document that has a title of Jack Bauer. And in this case, I'm only updating the content. I have no value for the title in here. So what do you think will happen when I hit send? So I get a successfully updated article message being sent back. And if we check Robo3T, if we refresh our articles, you can see that I now no longer even have a title property. It's just been wiped clean because as we saw before, a put request is meant to replace the entire resource. So in this case, the broken bicycle is replaced by a brand new bicycle. But in my case here, my document on Jack Bauer has been entirely replaced by the values that I have supplied in my put request. So where does this override argument come from? Well, there's a really good post on Stack Overflow that actually addresses this in a lot of detail. And I'll link to it in the course resources for this lesson. But the important thing is to realize that when you're using Mongoose, it's actually doing some stuff behind the scenes that it thinks that you might want. So normally when we run the method update, which is a Mongoose method, it will override the default MongoDB behavior, which is to overwrite everything with the values that the client provides. So namely, if there wasn't a title, then the title property would be completely wiped out. But in order to suppress this behavior from Mongoose, that's why we're adding this overwrite property. So have a read of this if you want a more in-depth explanation of this. So what if we don't want to replace our entire document with only the values that were submitted in the put request? Well, that is where the patch request comes in. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next lesson.